And Tuesdays live with me, Larry Nemecek, Dr. Trek. Hey, what's the next big Star Trek breakout? How about we do that and that? What is the next Star Trek big breakout? That's today on Trekland Tuesdays live, because we're coming at you from the heart of Trekland right through Portal 47 for some sanity, clarity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. And of course, today we are brought to you in part by all of our great Patreon folks in the TTL Club. Blaze K. Lawrence, Todd, Robin Wilson, Anne-Marie Siegel, Blake Arledge, Justin Porteous, and Nathaniel Robinson. Look at all these names. And my big thanks, and I have to get on their special perk, to our TTL Live Wires, Rusty Harold, Jared Cooper, Halbjord Gunn Johnson, Eli Irvin, Jalen Bullock, Gary Williams, Robert McLean. We had a weird break there. Dan Leckie, and Casey Shafsky. Thank you, guys. Hey, if you're new to us here on Tuesdays Live, if you've just stumbled in, I'm going to get through my soapbox of the week, and then we'll take a midway break. If you're watching later on YouTube, hi, thanks. Remember to subscribe. We'll end there, but if you're on Facebook or if you're watching us live, and I hope you're watching us live at least some week, we'll get to the Parrot Analytics U.S. streaming TV ratings, a quick look, and then I'll get into the chat, guys, okay? I'm not chatting back and forth usually unless something alarming is coming up, just the way the show's evolved. But we will get to all the chat, including the Twitchers, after that midway break in a few minutes, okay? So hopefully you can stay around for that. Yeah. What is the next big Star Trek breakout? Look, my mind went to this topic. I know. We're in the desert here. We're waiting on the next show, which is part of what's going on with me today. Over the weekend, I found myself being not harangued on Twitter, but getting some feedback from one particular tweet person who was reacting to a podcast that I recently did, a podcast, and it's on YouTube. Hey, with Tex Trekkie and with Trek on the Tube, basically a state of the franchise, state of the Trek look, which is funny because for about 10 years, that's a topic I've done as a con topic at cons over the years when we're not doing just, pure fact. And it's great about getting people involved and hopefully spreading a little awareness. Let me move this just a second. Spreading a little awareness for not just Star Trek that you see on the screen, but also the way Hollywood works, the way the media is working right now, and human nature involved. All of that mixed in. It's not just what you see on screen. That's one of our Trekland missions here the last 10, 15, 20 years, since mature fandom and crazy media everywhere has become part of the picture. It's what helps us get to that savvy fan status. And anyway, it was a great discussion. Talked about some things I hadn't thought about yet. But apparently that whole notion of the buffet of Star Treks presently and coming was just too much for somebody out there who barraged me with probably mostly factual information about how expensive the current Star Treks were to produce and how through several different metrics, they don't seem to be performing well. I guess getting at the basic point here is how far the modern franchise has come and how far it's come since, yes, we all know, we could put it in capital letters on a brass plaque, Discovery's troubled birth. And how each succeeding show has kind of reinvented the wheel, got better at streaming, how it's given us another flavor. And something I've been saying for a long time is, we've got so much coming down the pike. But my point today is, if I thought, and maybe you did too, if I thought one of these shows was going to be a breakout, it clearly hasn't happened. I mean, we do the Parrot Analytics rankings here, which, are not actual eyeball numbers, but they're a metric that Parrot Analytics uses to scour the internet for all these streaming shows that don't have otherwise hard numbers. Even if you don't want to attack the Nielsen's, the good old over-the-air terrestrial ratings as inaccurate, which people have done since the dawn of time. But that is a step above these crazy internet memes based on popularity, based on content. Because, like, as someone would always say, number one, how much of the audience is not really on the internet still? And number two, or they're not in all the right snarky places, or they're just consumers, not producers. And number two, is that measuring negative as well as positive comment? And yeah, I know it's like the only thing worse than negative publicity is no publicity at all, right? So there's a little bit of that. But I think most of us watching Star Trek kind of agrees that the more these years have gone on since, 2016, 2017, that the quality of the Trek has been improving. I think some of us that stopped to think about it were wondering what the impact of Discovery would be. Actually, it's been interesting going back to the Kelvin movies, which are so not a part of this. I know in some people's minds it's all Kurtzman Trek, but it's not. It's movies versus TV. It's a committee approach versus a top-down executive producer. I mean, it's still a group of creators, but even the famous Supreme Court of Trek during the JJ days. And whatever comes down the pike later, if anything does here, whatever it looks like movie-wise, if it comes out of basically the same old mill, what that will be. But look, I'm talking about for the last 10, 15 years, the realization that the Comic-Con era dawned after the peak of Star Trek. Enterprise, you could argue, was on the downslope. What was the peak of modern Trek? Of post-revival Trek from 1987 on with Next Gen? Well, it was the foamy years, I call them, of 92, 93, 94, right? The peak of Star Trek Next Generation, when it was not only going into movies that were doing relatively distant, but hey, First Contact in 96. You can't argue with that. That was 96. What else was happening? Oh, I don't know. Next Gen was inspiring not one, but two spin-offs. We had a multi-channel universe. We had a cinematic universe before people invented the buzzword, as usually happened with Star Trek. We invented it before it was a thing. Not to sit down and do it, but what Star Trek created, the excitement and the passion in its audience, did not exist before to that degree with the tech tools and channels that were available. I keep saying Star Trek Star Trek demanded the invention of the internet, and it had to start with paper and stamps. Okay? That level of passion and involvement, and yes, fan ownership. It began with Star Trek. At least as far as genre franchises, maybe Hollywood stars, celebrities, maybe musicians, rock band singers. That's the only other thing that ever engendered that kind of passing. And what happens? That ebbs and flows, right? Shows eventually wear out. Singers, musicians, bands eventually burn themselves out. Here's Star Trek after 55 years. Point being that the cream of the Berman years was 92, 93, 94. Everything that era begat into pop culture, though, kind of erupts in the Comic-Con movement. Twilight is what put San Diego on the map as being just crazy the year it flowed over. Hollywood coming to Comic-Con, grousing the old comic, the old flip through the dusty comic boxes guys. Didn't like the coming of Hollywood and the whole Hall H phenomenon. But that's what happened. Well, Star Trek missed all that. I think I've mentioned this story before. When Robbie McNeil was a producer and overseeing director on Chuck, which was one of my great pleasures of the guilty pleasures of the he was with cast. The cast all up on stage at Hall H, and he was just kind of down off in the wings out front. And I'm like, why aren't you on stage? And he's like, we had our time. But they didn't really. And that's what we're at now. The whole Comic-Con movement was launched by Star Trek, but Star Trek never got to enjoy that. So where I am today, where I've been for the last 3, 4, 5 years, is waiting for that modern Star Trek moment when I go to, say, not Trek Vegas, because that's a gimme, but San Diego, or fill in the, New York, whatever, your local, Seattle, Denver, Houston, wherever you are, Phoenix, Salt Lake City, yes. But I go to a Comic-Con, and oh my God, a fourth of the 14, 15, 16-year-olds are running around in something of Star Trek. Now, I thought maybe with Beyond and the 50th anniversary that maybe we'd see a million Jaylas, but it was kind of a barometer that no, even as empowering and wonderful as Sophia's character and portrayal was, that movie did not do well at the box office as much as the other two had. And, we didn't see a million Jaylas that summer. Yeah, which got me wondering. And by the way, if you're joining us a little later, again, hang on, I'll get to the chat in just a little bit. But I will back roll. I will backtrack, and we'll get to everything, okay, after the midway break here. But no. So if not Jayla, if not, I don't know, if not the coming of Discovery. And you know what? I'm thinking for cosplay, I'm thinking in terms of, young ladies. I'm not trying to be sexist here. Guys can cosplay too. We can gender bend. That's not a thing. Just talking about anybody, anything. And not that that's the end all be all of Star Trek or popularity or fame or barometer of eyeballs. But it is a metric. It's just as much a metric as all the metrics that one guy sent me to show how the modern Treks are failing badly and have no hope. My point here is that's a metric that I'm using and I'm waiting for. And maybe when I see that in my mind, I'll think, oh my God, Star Trek has really finally broken through to the radar. Now we're going to get all the world's trolls, not just a fraction of them. Be careful what you wish for, Lieutenant. You may get it. That's not the only one, but it can be one. And it can be one just as the guy that sent me all of those, the not quite, but not even close metrics. We're watching the Parrot Analytics here every week. Picard and Discovery both got into the top 10 during their fresh runs, and then immediately were not seen again, which is a way of saying that the online chatter for those shows cooled off. Now, is that because Star Trek is such a thing for 55 years that the parrots don't measure, that it's like splitting the pie? And there's plenty of Star Trek chatter out there. It's just not specifically about Discovery and Picard. Lower Decks never got in the top 10. As beloved as Lower Decks was, and I think a lot of Lower Decks love came in after the fact, after the first run, after those first, 10 weeks. Could be. We'll see. Maybe season 2 will start off much hotter with all the word of mouth from season 1. Maybe that dynamic will be working. But no, I ask this week, what is the next Star Trek breakout? Breakout as in, bang. Spock was the breakout character of TOS. Bang. Data was the breakout character of Next Generation.
Hi, this is 8188.
DS9 was a little slow to percolate. Didn't really get there. Voyager, you might say it was the Doctor, then certainly 7. Enterprise, did they ever get a breakout character during the 4 years? Or was it kind of all even? You know what I'm saying? But I'm not even talking about breakout character this time, although that would be one thing. I was looking for Jaylas, didn't see them. Looking for little Michaels, didn't see them. I don't know what we'll see, if ever, at a Comic-Con. I'm just curious now about not a breakout character, but a breakout series. I thought Picard would be a breakout series. The internet melted down the day Patrick walked out on that stage at STLV. It was amazing. What kind of build-up, what more build-up could you ask for? Free publicity, free promotion. And I still enjoyed Picard. A lot of people were disappointed in the ending. It's fine. Spock died too and came back in another body. That's fine. And we can talk about that. Lower Decks, I really thought would be Breakout snarky. I was a little about it, but I thought a lot of people would love it who didn't know 50 years of backstory to Star Trek. Came out just the opposite. The show landed so well, it made friends of people who were doubting the worthiness of animation for Star Trek. But it never popped into the parrots. Not that they're the end-all, be-all either. But as a metric, at least Picard and Discovery did. Lower Decks never did. So, we've got all kinds of viewports here. We've got all kinds of metrics, all kinds of scanner grids. And it is true. It is true. Star Trek has still not yet ascended to the heights in this crowded, competitive, crazy 24/7, hey, the geeks won media landscape. And Marvel's still up there. Star Wars might be fading a little bit. If this is all about a contest, I'm not trying to make it a horse race, but that's what the media is going to paint it as, and that's what a lot of fans get into. And a lot of fans do get off on, box office and all these different metrics that are out there, new and old. But the landscape is shifting. I often say that our fandom, you online folks with me right now, and all of you out there, that's still a sliver of fandom. It's not all fandom. And even convention fandom is not all fandom. How many toxic fans have you met at a convention live? Somewhere out there, something's going to do it. Indeed, we were talking on this State of the Franchise with Tex Trekkie and Trek on the Tube. Is it too late for Discovery to turn the corner? Just like it was too late for Voyager and DS9 in their time to turn the corner and blow up. Now, Next Generation did. Third season percolates along, and then boom, best of both worlds, and bang, it explodes. We've never had that replicated. Even the saving grace fourth season, when it was really the third season of Enterprise, was its do or die season. Fourth was bought on borrowed time, almost a deal with the devil. Those ratings had to quadruple. They did spike, but nowhere near what would have caused a second, a reversal by Les Moonves that year, after CBS had taken over little dinky tin pot UPN from its little dinky tin pot UPN, constantly turning over administration. DS9 and Voyager, as beloved as they are now, as beloved especially as DS9 is once, the coming of the Defiant, the coming of Worf, the Dominion War arcs, that didn't appreciably affect ratings then. And of course now that's what we're talking about. Voyager got tons of eyeballs for 7. I think it did get better. Didn't go through the roof though. So yeah, it's hard for any series after 2-3 years in the can. And I mean, whether it's a real year or one of these little mini years, seasons, years, whatever. It's hard to make that turn and come back. So is the bloom off the rose for Discovery? Had the big reset this year? Who knows? We'll see. They keep going down this path. It is only 13 episodes to work with. Picard's working with only 10. Lower Decks is the same thing. You almost look to the new shows, in other words, to be this bang breakthrough, right? Maybe there's a simmering mob out there for Lower Decks after all, now that so many people saw it after the fact. Who knows? It'll be great. But this gets me to, is it somebody that's on deck? Is it someone that's in the bullpen? Is it Strange New Worlds? Will Anson Mount, will the supposed return to one-off basic storytelling with a couple of runners, not overarching arcs, but just a couple of running arcs through the show like any of the prior, will that do it? Will it be Section 31 now that so many people have gone from the first, but maybe the least enthusiastic new shows, a loose enthusiasm for? But after that send-off, after that soft pilot, the send-off of Georgiou from Discovery, where you don't get a clue except that she's off somewhere and what the statements have been, where she is, and what does her Section 31 look like? Is it Section 31 with an asterisk? Could that possibly be the one that breaks through somehow? Depends on what the cast is around her, what the format is, right? We know pretty much what Strange New Worlds is going to be. We've got a lot of detail to see, but we've got 3 actors. And yeah, that's why Anson Mount is in the Paramount Plus mountain climbing expedition. That's one tease they could give away. And then we've got Prodigy. I don't know, guys. A true young adult centric show that's not on CBS All Access, excuse me, that's not going to be on Paramount Plus. It's going to be on Nickelodeon. I keep wondering what the next breakout Star Trek series is going to be, much less character. Could it be Section 31? Could Section 31 be so clever it's like the Man from U.N.C.L.E. of its time, or the Batman of its time, the 60s Batman? Right? Could it be the, dare to say it, the Mandalorian of its time? Could Strange New Worlds be the Next Generation of its time? It's such a crowded marketplace now, guys. It is so crowded. It's not even like the 80s and 90s. You see the failed shows, Star Trek or otherwise. You see the failed shows of UPN that got canceled after a year, and any network series, much less cable, would die to have those kind of ratings and audience shares. Or could it be Prodigy? Hey, cadets, I'm wondering if Prodigy, not to stack up here on the Hageman brothers and all of their talented crew, is Prodigy next up in the pipeline? Not that we're probably going to. I'm betting we will not have a live in-person Comic-Con, or if we San Diego, and if we do, it will be a shell of itself. It'll be like seeing 25,000 people at the Super Bowl, at live sporting events. But whatever that metric, whatever that feeling is, not to put all the pressure on, but it's got young adult characters. At least for that audience, at least for that fun, bubbly, buzzy, buzz-making audience, and the visuals, if we're allowed to have visuals, will it be Prodigy? On Nickelodeon, accessible to all the world at the same time, and aimed exactly at that target young market. And deceptively at the same time. We're not talking about a shiny Star Trek Starfleet crew Captain Bridge doing missions. We're talking about an offbeat project here with an arc, and somehow with Captain Admiral Janeway maybe involved. What are the kids? What are the characters? It's been the most elusively stated of all of these new series. It's still the most elusive one, and they're done. They finished their first season ages ago. Nothing yet. Maybe there's complications, and I know these animated shows love to take 2 years for 10 episodes, as Lower Decks did. Wouldn't it be amazing if, out of everything coming down the line now or since of the new era, and even considering the old guys, original series did not bubble up until the 70s, remember? Until you got it to more eyeballs after school. And somebody knew how to promote it the way that NBC in primetime never could break out of the box to do it right. Maybe it's Prodigy. I don't know. Anyway, it's food for thought. One of these is going to do it. One of these is going to do it and is going to lift everybody else up. One of these is going to break through. And here I'll leave you with this. If this is all kind of, your head is numb and you feel like you've been more full of Star Trek than you have in ages and they're coming thick and fast, just think about this. In the last 4 years, we've wound up with 3 series: Discovery, then Picard, then Lower Decks. Different formats, different tones. Yes, different tones, including an animated. In the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to double that with distinct, unique series. Within a year, 2 at most, we're going to have 6 Star Trek series and formats, right? Not churning out 26 a year, but still on our scale today. Yeah. Chew on that one for a minute. Within a couple of years, we will double all the new post-Enterprise Star Trek offerings. And what's down the pike? There's still 2 and 3 and 4 things percolating in Alex's head. Alex and the team, of course. Yeah, chew on that. And maybe they all stay at this level, but I got to think one of them is going to break out and break through and be what 1 out of every 4 teenagers is cosplaying at a Comic-Con. Maybe that'll never happen. Maybe it's 1 out of 10. But I think it's going to happen. It is going to happen. The pendulum swing, the times change, the landscape shift. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I almost wonder if Prodigy is going to be the one that does it. Still being sight unseen. But the other elements are there. The other formulas are there. I don't know. What do you think? Hey, we're going to take a break here. Chew on that for a minute, kiddos. I know we got no new Star Trek coming. We're going to have to think of these topics week to week. And hey, if you ever want me to discuss something, please do it. You know, I have my column in the paper, in the Dead Tree Media Star Trek magazine. If you're with me on any of my socials, every month or two, I ask for random questions, and I pulled it in from Twitter and Facebook. I guess I could ask it on Instagram too. I never think anybody, that's not the way to do that. So anyway, I love getting that in, but hey, we could do something here. We are going to have several weeks here of needing fresh topics on Tuesday, which can be a challenge sitting down Monday night, not having a topic for the next day, guys. But hey, once again, I want to thank all of our Patreons for the support. If you want to try that out at the end of the month, they bill. Patreon's the way that you can support your favorite creatives, you know, in a one-off way or in an ongoing subscriber way. That's what I have. I have a very simple one. I have so many other projects going. I just say, hey, I'd love for you to help me support the live streaming here. $5, $10. 5 gets a shout out, 10 gets a shout out, plus access to the early years of our Portal 47 behind the scenes interviews. Love that. Patreon.com. Mine is /Trekland Live. And yes, over at the Roddenberry podcast site, hey, the Trek Files is out again. We've got Noah Averbot Kutz, Rin from Discovery, back with us, but not talking about Andorians this week, talking about Star Trek couples, because you know he's the better half, or the lesser half, of Mary Wiseman's Sylvia Tilly. Does anybody remember that Tilly's first name is Sylvia and not Tilly? Yeah, we had a great time talking about Star Trek couples based off a fan letter to Majel, speaking of Star Trek couples. So that's the idea. Come over every Tuesday. We're the only podcast with paper. Get the document of the week on Facebook, but you can get the podcast in several number of places. Every Tuesday overnight, it's there Tuesday morning. We call it the Tuesday Twofers, or I do. Trek Files in the morning when you first wake up, and here we are on Tuesdays live. And of course, on Saturday live, it's Life Support Live with Dr. Ali and Dr. Trek. One of us is a real doctor. 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. Central Europe. We go boldly through uncertain times. Have a lot of fun geeking out on Star Trek and slipping a little mental health awareness in there. Maybe some tips for you too, but we have a lot of fun. We have a great Lifers gang. Live community there, just like we've got a great live community here, the TTLers, and a lot of it overlaps. So I'm glad to see everybody. I'm glad to see people sampling one or the other. That's what's going on. Join us on Saturday, would you? And if you're watching live right now, or even later, wherever you are, YouTube, at Larry Nemecek, that's my Twitter. Facebook, Larry Nemecek's Trekland, that's my Instagram. And of course, if you like the way I come at Star Trek, if you like this attitude that I have, I try not to be the same old everywhere. Give you a big picture look. Well, that's all what everything Trekland is about. And also Portal 47. Portal 47, Germanicon all year long. We've got Portales on the call here. Maybe we'll talk a little Portal 47. Our last guest night, there's all different parts to Portal 47, but the highlight, beside the roundtables, beside the sharing documents from my archives, all that stuff. The guest night, we just had Laura Richards. Who you say? Laura Richards, the set decorator from the last 6 of DS9's 7 seasons. She's awesome and brought tons of her personal pictures along. That's just a sample. All the folks you never see at conventions or get interviewed, and some you do. But yeah, we're bringing voice to all the voices. Again, it's for all the Star Trek folks who have no idea how much Star Trek they have no idea about. Anyway, love to see you there sometime, but I love seeing you here. So we'll take a break. I'll be right back live and on Facebook. But if you are leaving today, if this is your last glimpse on a YouTube later, hey, everybody. As always, even more so these days, of course, do all the smart things and be well, okay? And be woke. And by that, I mean, check the sources on the things that get you riled up online and see if it's even a real person, okay? Look, most of all, as always, trek well, everybody. And we'll see you next week.